about the books that I read for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest. He's a retired FBI agent, and of course, coming up on author to none other than Mr. Eric Robinson.
Thank you, Daniel. Appreciate the opportunity.
Welcome, Mr. Eric, on Book One on Review. And can you please introduce more about yourself that I miss?
Certainly, I'm 3 weeks into retirement from the FBI after serving there for 24 years. Prior to the FBI, I served in Christian ministry. I pastored a church. In 2002, I left that to begin my career in law enforcement.
And thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world, Mr. Eric. Thank you. And today let's talk about, can you reflect on current events from the perspective of a former agent? So let's start beyond the obvious traits like integrity and courage. What is so surprising or underappreciated character traits that separates a good agent from a great one?
I think that the difference between a good agent and a fine agent is curiosity. So if I'm encountering a subject and I need to know more, rather than having a confirmation bias or assuming that I know what is right at all times, if I have a curiosity while I'm interviewing witnesses or victims or even the subject himself, instead of holding to my own beliefs, but investigating and being open to what someone else might say that counters what I've brought to the table, that can open up different avenues that otherwise are going to be shut down. So I've seen agents who hold a singular belief and stick to it. And I've seen ones who are very open to what the facts and the evidence will bring them. And I believe the latter is the one that's typically more successful.
Interesting, Mr. Eric. The FBI motto is fidelity, bravery, integrity. In practice, how does an agent navigate such situations where these values seems to be in tension with each other, like during complex undercover operation?
Well, the fidelity is to the American people and to the Constitution. Um, the difficulty of being in an undercover investigation or even entering a home where violent criminals might be is where the bravery comes in. And it's simply a matter of being well prepared, having competent agents next to you. And I think the bravery just comes simply with that. And the integrity is something that shows up under stress. So I can do what's right when it's easy. The difficulty is doing what is right when there is uh, opportunities to take an easier path. I have found, fortunately, that the majority of FBI agents, all that I've known, are ones who are going to hold to that integrity. They're going to be ones who hold to their morals, make the right choices. Fortunately, we're not put into many situations where we've got to make a decision that might show a lack of honesty, but the agents that I've worked with have by and large been ones who make those decisions that are going to be in the best interest of the American people.
Very well said, Mr. Eric. Very well said indeed. How does an agent maintain a sense of self and moral compass when their job requires them to deeply understand and even infiltrate worlds of extreme violence or ideology?
Well, that's definitely something that I encountered and I've seen others. When a person is involved with criminal elements and each day you go to work and that's what you immerse yourself in, looking into sometimes just horrible and disgusting behaviors, it can be difficult not to be jaded, to be cynical yourself. Uh, we have people who investigate child pornographers, and they also undergo, I wouldn't say rigorous, but regular psychological support and testing to make sure that they are not overcome. But it takes the support of the agents around you and the support staff who are also involved, such as analysts. And I found that probably the same way that you would handle situations like that is how we did, which is talking with each other, decompressing, unloading burdens by discussing the matters. So having to see, for example, I investigated in Chicago Mexican and Colombian drug cartels, and so I saw Mexican and Colombian people who are solely involved in criminal activities, and it's difficult not to fall into racist ideas and stereotypes because this is all you see. And so it's a matter of opening up one's mind, recognizing how you can have biases and just dealing with those. I found discussing with like minded agents to say, hey, look, this is what I'm encountering. We need to do better than this. We need to not fall into these traps. That is a simple way that helped me.
Mr. Eric, you have a upcoming book. Tell us about it.
So my wife owns Weaving Influence, which is a book marketing and publishing company. And as I was coming near to retirement, we were thinking of ideas of what I should be doing. And she said, "Oh, you should write a book." And I said, "That's a great idea." But over all these years, I never wrote down anecdotes or stories. And I thought I had wasted an opportunity to put these things together. So my wife gave me a book on how to write books from one of her clients, and I read it. And in the book, it said there's two different styles to writing. One is where you map out what you want to do, and the other is you sit down and just start typing away. And I know that my tendency would be to just sit down and type away. So I thought, let me map out the book and put a skeleton to it first. And so I sat down and began to do that. But then I thought, well, let me start with just the introduction and get that down first. And from there, I just started typing, and the stories flowed. And I never wrote out the format of it. I just started putting down stories that, in some ways, I think can be fascinating because they're insight into what an FBI agent might encounter. For agents, it's fairly common for us to see uh, what the inside of homes look like when we break open the door at 6 in the morning, to interact with pimps and underage prostitutes, to go into drug houses. Those things are every week. But for the general public, there's some insight to be gained on hearing what it's like to sit on a telephone wiretap to a sitting governor and what that experience was like. So I have laid out a series of stories encapsulating cases that I either investigated myself or was part of. And then I wrap that up with an after action, which is a reflection on what I learned or what we learned from that. And I then try to integrate how that beginning career that I had, the influence of my spiritual work and my life, also carried over in many ways into my FBI career. And I could see that in many ways of how showing grace and kindness to people was so often instrumental in winning them over to either supporting, making a confession, or becoming involved as an informant with us. So much of what I had done as a pastor carried over into my work as an FBI agent as well.
Well, good luck to your upcoming book, Mr. Eric, and please do come over and let's talk about it when you publish.
Absolutely.
Let's Yeah, so let's talk about the human element and psychology. What would be before that? What would be the title of the book itself?
The working title right now is Irreverend, because I began as a reverend, and the career I led was often irreverent, dealing with prostitutes, drug dealers, and many pieces of the dark side of society. So we felt like that fit well into the title.
Hmm. Okay, good luck to that. So, the job involves seeing humanity at its worst. What personal practices or philosophies are essential to avoid cynicism and protect your own mental and emotional well being?
Well, one thing that I came to learn along the way or realize is many days were long where we would have an arrest or a search warrant. We'd be out in the cold or uncomfortable. Difficulties arise along the way. And then I came to recognize that whatever I was going through, the person we were arresting, even if they deserved this arrest and it was a justified arrest, was probably having the worst day of their life. And
Mm-hmm.
so it took, I took that to use to often calm people. It doesn't help to try to interrogate a subject when they're hyperventilating or perseverating on how this is so terrible and their life is over. So helping them through and seeing them as humans, even the worst people that we encountered were still humans. And in interacting with them, I attempted to find some connecting piece. And this could be someone who steals from the elderly. It could have been drug dealers, murderers, pedophiles. But there's always something that they have that I have as well, even if it's that we're both fathers or we both enjoy baseball. Finding something that connected with them and treating them as human, at least in the moment, I found was often helpful in connecting and setting aside some of the cynicism that might come naturally with the work that we do.
Interesting, Mr. Eric. So, can you share an instance where empathy, truly understanding a subject's or a victim perspective, was more critical to resolving a case than a piece of forensic evidence?
Certainly. We had a case about, I would say, 12 years ago in Toledo, Ohio, where we were trying to rescue a 15-year-old underage prostitute. She was being trafficked by a pimp, middle-aged male, and we had gotten word that she had run away from her foster home and now was prostituting under his direction. So there was a local motel that was frequented by prostitutes. We set up a sting there to arrest a 20-year-old woman who was also assisting this teenager to prostitute. And the we could have easily charged her. We could have put her in prison at that point. But the whole focus on our investigation was to rescue this young girl and get her out of the hands of the pimp. So, despite the fact that we could have come in and told this woman how terrible she is and how disgusting her life was, I showed her kindness. Rather than putting her in handcuffs, I took her down the street to a sandwich shop and bought her lunch. And being treated probably for the first time in quite a while as a human being, this young woman opened up and helped us to eventually locate the 15-year-old girl who had been taken to, at this point, Chicago by the pimp to prostitute. So her evidence, we could have yelled at her, we could have been cruel to her, we could have just thrown her in prison. But rather than take the time for that, our mission was to find the young girl. And by showing kindness to the young lady, that was more useful than any search warrants or phone trackers we could have used. I've lost you on the mic.
Yes, thank you for
There we
that,
are.
Mr. Eric. Thank you. And let's talk about the skills in action, judgment, and adaptation. We often think of FBI work as a high stakes raid, but a lot of this meticulous investigation. How do you sustain focus and motivation during those long grinding periods without immediate payoff?
That's absolutely the life of an FBI agent. Whereas police officers will react to calls for service and they police, they take care of a situation for whatever's thrown to them. FBI investigations are very often long processes. I've had investigations last up to 5 years based on stalling from prosecutors or difficulty to resolve the situation. But for me, it was always the small wins along the way. My longest investigation was a financial one on a man who had regularly stolen funds from investors, bankrupted the company, and moved on with the explanation that startups sometimes work and sometimes they don't. And as the man continued to enrich himself, he presented an image that he was successful because he had enriched himself off of other people's money. And so new investors would give money. So along the way, finding victories in uncovering new information from bank records, winning over a new witness, somebody I could put a recorder on and send to meet with the subject, those peaks along the way would often balance out the long periods of nothing happening um, until knowing that eventually we're going to get prosecution on this individual. That and I was fortunate enough to be able to fill some of the off times with ancillary jobs that I had in the FBI. I was a member of the SWAT team for 15 years. That was often very busy. So, one, two, three times a week, we were off in training or breaking down doors to arrest some of the more dangerous people. I was a firearms instructor as well, and I taught tactics to the agents. So, for me, filling those empty times with other items that in I felt were multipliers. My training of other agents felt good to me because now I was making 20 or 50 people better at their jobs, and that was satisfying to me.
Well, very well said. Mr. Eric, as a debut author, what are your short term and long term goals?
Well, my short-term goals would be getting the book published in the fall and going through all the details of copy editing and finishing up the process. Long-term goals, I will be using that as a platform to speak and to give presentations. I am putting together a company that will provide details on how businesses and religious institutions can make themselves more secure. I think that my time with the FBI allows me to have some insight into that, and so I'm wanting to use that for a good purpose.
Good purpose indeed, and good luck to your goals, Mr. Eric, and looking forward for more success. And what would be your piece of advice for those people out there who want to be like you?
Well,
Want to
if
be like you.
if they want to be like me as far as being in the FBI, I highly recommend it. The FBI hires almost exclusively good people. Even the few people that I ran into that I didn't like, they were probably better than most in the business world. So we hire good people who are intelligent, they're self starters, they're hard workers. So getting to work among those people was a highlight of my life. Being among members of the SWAT team, where men and now more recently one woman on the team were willing to put their lives in the line for me and sacrifice themselves for a mission. made them, for me, some of the best people that I've ever been around. So, if folks want to be like me, I highly recommend looking into a career in the FBI. You can go to fbijobs.gov, and that's a place to learn more. But it was very satisfying for me to serve as a special agent.
Yes. And, well, thank you for that. Inspiring advice, Mr. Eric. And can you please recommend a book or books that influence your journey?
I enjoy reading books that will help me, well, as I was an agent, we'll see in this next chapter, but help me expand my mind to think of other people. So I can be in my own head easily, but realizing what is going on in my mind and then thinking what other people might think, I found those books to be useful. A book called Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman was
Mhm.
a strong influence in my life. It taught me to think about how I was thinking and to recognize how I could use that through interviews and interrogations, just personal interaction with others.
Thank you for that recommended book, Mr. Eric. And let's talk about the looking forward and the broader insights. If you are mentoring a brilliant new agent, what one piece of counterintuitive advice would you give them that they would not find in the manual?
Uh, yeah, I've been there. I have gotten to mentor some brilliant agents who were much better prepared than I ever was coming into the FBI. Uh, the advice that I gave, if you're going to ask something that's counterintuitive, was that there will always be time to do the work. So there are occasions where I've been up all night on a case. I have worked late in the hours writing affidavits. I have gotten up early in order to try to catch someone leaving for work on surveillance. And I will would always put in that time when necessary. But family is important as well. Even if the person is single, that personal life is very important to guard. And so, one thing that I had advised some of the newer agents is always put in the time when you're expected, always be available for your teammates. But also, if it's not needed, you'll always have time to do work otherwise. You could come in, you could work 24 hours a day and work every weekend, and there will always be work to do because there's always bad guys. But knowing how to pace and take care of yourself and maintain your own mental health is something that sometimes gets put to the wayside when people come in and they're excited and patriotic and wanting to work, knowing the work will be there.
Mm, definitely. With the rise of AI, deepfakes, and encrypted communications, what human qualities will become more, not less, vital for FBI agent of the future, Mr. Eric?
Wow. I AI came into play on the tail end of my career, so I had not had enough uh, experience with that. But I would say much of the curiosity that I mentioned, having an open mind, no matter what sophisticated techniques the FBI has used over the years, it will always, and I don't see this changing, come down to human resources. So working with informants who have inside information or can infiltrate a group or cozy up to a person, knowing how to win over witnesses and make them feel comfortable enough to share things with you or even discuss things that might be harmful or threatening to them. That personal interaction and the engagement with humans is always going to be the most important factor. I recently had a case with another agent who had tried and used every resource the Bureau has had, sophisticated things that I can't discuss with
Mhm.
you.
Mhm.
And yet it came down to I had an informant who could meet up with his bad guy. And no matter what the agent had done, it got him information, but it couldn't get the the young man to make an admission until we introduced an informant. So the ability to be personal with other humans is always going to be of utmost importance in the FBI.
Hmm. Authenticity indeed. So, reflecting on your career, what do you learn about nature of truth? Is it a fixed destination you work to uncover, or something more fluid and constructed during an investigation?
Well, there are a lot of opinions on truth. There are a lot of individuals that I've interviewed post arrest who believe they've done nothing wrong and that's their truth. And I don't think that many times they don't feel like the arrest was justified. For us, the truth is often what we can prove in court. There are countless individuals that I know are guilty of crimes that we did not charge because we couldn't prove it, at least not sufficiently. And yet I know this is a bad person. So truth is muddy. I prefer to consider what justice might be and how facts align with our laws and our constitution. So it's difficult, and what one agent sees as true and right might be different than what I had believed. But ultimately, we have good checks and balances in the judicial system, uh, lines of defense through the FBI itself, and then through the Department of Justice and prosecutors, where hopefully wrongs are not done because enough eyes are being put to, is this right, proper, and just?
Very well said, Mr. Eric. And before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people, because my Abstract Essay is already in sixth season, Abstract Poetry in third season, and my Book 101 Review in sixth season as well, Comedy 101 third season, and my Food 101 in sixth season too, Geography 101 Love Letters, Movie 101 Review, Music 101 our fifth season, Science 101, Sex 101, fourth season, and my baby podcast, Spiritual Awakening 101, Trivia 101, Law 101, Mental Health 101, Motivation 101, Entrepreneurship 101, of course, my Bible Verses 101. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. So, Mr. Eric, stepping back, how has this work fundamentally changed your understanding of the balance between security and liberty in a free society?
Well, I'll tell you this, that working so long with criminals and seeing their lives behind the scenes, I I have come to understand there is definitely some cynicism involved, but I have come to see where criminals hide and live, and they're among us. And many times we will arrest someone, and the neighbors will come out in their front yard after all is calmed, and they'll tell us they had no idea. So I had my youngest child was working at a restaurant and was telling me about Frank, and Frank was a dishwasher in his mid 50s. And I told my child, well, Frank's a felon because if he's working as a dishwasher in his 50s, he's committed some crimes. And knowing that people are out there, they're human, they've made mistakes. Frank may
Yes.
be a nice person. It
Hmm.
just difficult time getting a successful job, but it has opened up my eyes to being aware that there are people in the midst of crimes who are serving us and working with us. So it's a matter of just being on guard while also trying to be the best person I can to them.
Indeed. So, Mr. Eric, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. So, can you please invite our listeners to support your upcoming book?
Absolutely. I will be promoting it. I'll be amplifying this podcast likely at that time. And in the fall, when my book comes out, invite everybody to read some interesting stories.
Yes, people, let's support Mr. Eric Robinson because if you support him, for sure, more and more empowering storytelling will rise. So, Mr. Eric, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much.
Welcome, people. See you soon.